Every November, our country comes together to celebrate Remembrance Day. Poppies pop up everywhere, and you may have even taken part in a 1-minute silence at your school. It's been going on for nearly 100 years, but have you ever stopped to wonder why it's still so important? Well, it all began way before you and I were born, so we're going to need to travel back in time for this one and check out where things started. You've heard of World War I, right? It began in 1914 and ended in 1918, and millions of soldiers were killed. The war ended at exactly 11 a.m. on the morning of the 11th of November, after both sides agreed to stop fighting. This is called an armistice. 1 year later, King George V asked the public to observe the very first 2-minute silence at 11 a.m. to remember all those who died. Today, Remembrance Day honours not just those who were killed or injured in World War I, but in all conflicts, like the more recent ones in the Falklands, Iraq or Afghanistan. Can you imagine what it must be like to go to war? I can't, but someone who does is JJ Chalmers. He was a former Royal Marine Commando and served in Afghanistan. Hi JJ, so what was it like in Afghanistan and were you scared?
There are moments in Afghanistan that are scary. You're in a war zone and it is dangerous, but I was well trained, I was experienced, and most importantly, I was surrounded by some of the best people that I could ever want to be with, who were my best friends, but they were also other Royal Marine Commandos who looked after me and I looked after them.
So, can you tell us a bit about what happened to you in 2011?
Sure, Maya. In 2011, when I was in Afghanistan, I was wounded by an improvised explosive device. So I was caught in a bomb blast and it hurt me really badly. And it left me disabled for the rest of my life, but I survived. Unfortunately, though, it took the lives of 2 of my friends and also our Afghan interpreter who was working with us. But when I see people wearing poppies on their chests every November, it reminds me of not just what I've been through, but more importantly, all the people that have been there with me and how many people have helped and supported me along the way.
But why is the poppy the symbol of Remembrance Day? Well, I've been looking into that too. It turns out, after all the fighting stopped in World War I, the countryside in Northern Europe was left devastated by battle. And what was the first thing to appear across the empty battlefields? Yep, you've guessed it, red poppies. Now, every November, the poppy is a symbol of remembrance and hope for a peaceful future. Millions of them are sold every year. And you might not know this, but the money they raise goes to help war veterans and their families. All this makes me wonder what Remembrance Day must be like for someone who served in the armed forces. JJ, what do you usually do on Remembrance Day?
That is a great question, Maya. I do different things on Remembrance Day. Sometimes I like to be by myself, just with my thoughts. So I might go for a long walk, certainly like to get outside. But sometimes I like to be with others, whether that's people that I served with in the military, or my family that have been with me, not just when I was in Afghanistan, throughout my recovery, and most importantly, still now. I make sure that I take a moment to be very grateful.
Are you able to tell me about what the day means to you?
Remembrance Day is a really important day to me, and I think it should be important to everybody. It's not just about not forgetting. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't think of my friends who sadly lost their lives. But it's actually about taking time to remember. It's a day that I like to think about, not just what I've been through, but what so many people have been through throughout history for us.
Hearing your story really helps me understand why this day is so important. Thank you for talking to me, JJ.
No, thank you, Maya. Thank you for asking the questions. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Looking into Remembrance Day has been a real eye-opener, hasn't it? It may have begun more than 100 years ago, but it's still so important that we all make time to think about what servicemen and women have sacrificed and how they've helped us live in peace and freedom.